All right. So, as you guys all know, we're doing the burning questions today. We're going to be talking about challenges and questions regarding match support. So, before we start anything, though, we're going to go around and just sort of introduce everybody. So, I'll start really quick. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Russell White. I'm the AmeriCorps Vista member serving here with the Iowa Mentoring Partnership. And then here with me is also Nicole Crow.
Hi, Nicole Quaid here. I work with Volunteer Iowa's Vista Project and also with the Iowa Mentoring Partnership.
Yes, and so we'll just go down in order here for people to introduce themselves. So, Angie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I work with the STAR program, next to the Starlight Community.
We're having a hard time hearing you, Angie.
Okay, if everyone on the call could self-mute yourself so we can avoid feedback, that will be wonderful. And then it looks like Angie just said that she's going to call in, so we can go. We can come back to Angie.
Yes. So next we'll start with Carla.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Carla Roberts with mentoring in Ames Middle School.
Excellent. Thank you, Carla. Yes, Chad too. We also have on a call with us Chad as well.
Hi there, everyone. This is Chad Driscoll, and I'm with Volunteer Iowa as a program officer on staff, and I also help the Iowa Mentoring Partnership in some of our TTA side of work, so glad to be here.
Excellent. Thank you, Chad. Next, Christine.
Russell?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I'm with Everybody Wins Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa.
Perfect. Thank you, Christine. Next, we have Sydney.
I am Cindy Smith from AmeriCorps Youth, launched out at Graceland University in Lamona, Iowa.
Thank you very much, Sydney. And then Erin Wimmer.
Hi, this is Erin Wimmer. I work for YSS in the Gilbert mentoring. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. And next up, Kathy.
Hi, this is Kathy Schwartzoff, and I'm with Helping Services for Youth and Families in Decorah, working with Albuquerque, Howard, and Winnebago counties.
Glad you could join us. Next, we have Kim Leininger. We might have to come back for Kim. Next, we have Lynn. All right, might have to come back for Lynn Carroll as well. And then last and certainly not least is Val. How are you doing, Val?
I'm doing great. It's a crazy time of year, but we all knew that already. I'm Val Maximovich with Independence Mustang Mentoring for the Independence Community Schools, school-based program.
Excellent. It's always nice to have you with us, Val. And then I think Angie is back with us. Do you want to introduce yourself just one more time, Angie?
Yes, my name is Angie Woodford, and I am with the STARS program, which is connected with the Storm Lake Community School District.
Excellent. We can hear you perfectly now.
Awesome.
I think we might have a message from Kim.
Yes. So we do have a message for Kim. She says that she just started may need to call since she can't hear anything, so we might hear from her just a little bit later. All right, so with introductions out of the way, we'll go ahead and get the peer share call underway. All right, so if everyone can just do a quick favor and just type at least one question or challenge that you may have regarding match support and monitoring in the chat box, and we can refer those questions throughout the rest of the peer share call. So I'll just give everybody just a few minutes to do that. right, we're getting some questions coming in. I'll give everyone just a few more minutes just in case. All right. Well, we're just going to jump right into this. So we have a few questions in the chat box. The first one we have is from Kathy Schwartzoff. She says, sometimes parent and guardians just don't call you back when you contact them. And in a similar vein, Angie Woodford put in mentors that do not respond when you try to reach out to them. So it seems like part of the challenges here are having a hard time communicating with either the mentors or the parents and guardian. So before we look at the other questions, let's just kind of jump right into there. Do anyone else on the call have any experience with this and have anything that they've done to kind of bridge that communication gap?
And please feel free to unmute yourself and talk to the whole group if you have some experience or thoughts to add.
Hi, this is Kim. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, I have the same problem a lot of times, and I don't think what I have to share is probably anything shocking to any of you. But after trying calling people and emailing and even sending written letters sometimes, I find out the best way that parents respond is through a text. And I can call and call and call, and they won't answer. But if I text, they usually respond. Now, the trick there then becomes that sometimes they don't have the same cell phone continuously and their cell phone changes, then I don't have the right number to contact. And so that isn't always a sure answer, but I have just found that texting is a far better way for many of my parents to respond to me than anything else.
Excellent. Yes, thank you very much. Does anybody else have anything to add or any kind of experiences similar to what was just offered?
This is Chad here, and I see that Lynn put a comment in the box too about maybe sending the text out ahead of time to try to schedule a call might be another option. And I was thinking of that too, trying to have a scheduled time, or asking, does this time not work? Because are you at work? And we need to do it off hours. And so maybe thinking of your schedule and your availability. Do you have some later days, afternoons, or evenings that you would do calls instead that might help getting a hold of folks too? So
definitely. Thank you, Chad. All right. Well, if we do not have any other comments or additions to that, we can probably just go right next into the next comment provided by Carla Roberts. She commented that one of her challenges is finding time to touch base with everyone when you are a part-time person. So does anyone have any experience with this?
This is Kathy. One of the things that, and even as a full-time person, it's hard. I'll say that. But one of the things that we've done is we have a local RSVP, and I have a volunteer that helps me with my match support phone calls. And that's a huge sense of, just kind of managing that time. And she gives me heads up when there's things that, need attention, and I will contact those people as well. But for those who all are going well, that's a great way to have somebody else take a little bit of the load and do some things. And of course, we've done background checks on her, and she's gone through a training and that kind of thing. But that's a big help to me.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Do we have anything else we want to add to that?
That should be fine. I just had it in mind.
All right. Well, we can go on to next to Christine's question, which I'm sure a lot of us can sort of relate to, and that is knowing if the match is a good fit for both the mentor and mentee, and what is suggested to figuring it out.
And Christine, are you thinking about before the match is initiated, like in the matching process, or are your thoughts more about as the match goes on, about how assessing if how the quality of the relationship is going?
It is more about how the relationship is going, and then if it doesn't appear to be a good match, how do you handle that?
No, and that's an excellent question.
So it's kind of a two-piece question, yes.
Has anyone on the call had the experience of needing to end a match early?
And if so, how did you identify that?
Did one today. This is Kathy. Yeah, and I mean, I think one of our biggest jobs is to really listen to what people are saying, because this particular match, I've known, because the mom is really good about calling me and saying, hey, this happened. I just want to let you know. And then yesterday something happened that it was kind of like a straw that broke the camel's back sort of thing, that she just said, hey, I can't do this anymore with this particular mentor. I feel bad, but it's not working. And that's, again, where I think we need to listen, and then to gracefully discuss that with the mentor and just put it in a way that helps them to understand, because in this particular situation, it was a communication issue. One time he'd say, oh, I'm going to pick him up on Thursday, and then he'd come to the school on Wednesday and then be upset that he couldn't take the child. Well, we all know that that's not going to happen in a school system. They're not going to release a youth to a mentor in the community without the parent saying this is the day it happens, kind of thing. And that happened several times. And so a lot of it was communication. So I just explained that to the mentor, that, hey, there would be several instances, and I talked to you after each one. And he openly said, well, maybe this just isn't working out. And that we also have another opportunity that people can be kind of a part-time person with helping with events. And I gave that to him as an option, because I still feel he's a good role model. It's just that I don't think that his communication is the best, at least at this present time. So I think, like I said, we have to listen, but then we also have to think through, how are we going to explain this in a way that focuses on the child, but yet also tells the mentor, if there is something in particular that they're not doing well, I believe it's important to tell them what that is, because otherwise they can go, oh, that was just the parent's problem. Oh, that was just this, and not take accountability for their part in the process.
No, that was excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kathy. And I guess it is very fortuitous. Well, not fortuitous, but it's quite the timing that you had to deal with that problem earlier today.
Yeah.
And perhaps we can even flip this question on its head just a little bit, because you at least had the fortune of there being communication from the parent and the mentor that it might not be working. As we all know, sometimes when matches don't go well, they're not always as obvious. Does anyone have any suggestions as to how, since this was Christine's question, how one can maybe pick up on perhaps some more subtle signs that a match is not going well?
This is Christine. Our program is pretty much community-based, school and community-based, so we don't have contact with parents, but we do have a part-time employee at all of our sites. So a lot of times it's just through observation, and you may notice that the student is not engaged or not wanting to come. Sometimes that's a good signal.
Excellent. Thank you, Christine. Does anybody else have any additional comments to add to this? All right, excellent. So we'll go on next to Val's question. She commented, keeping track of when to call back. Do you use a spreadsheet? Do you mark it on your calendar? What ideas do you have? So I guess to sum that up, what is some methods that our other programs utilize when trying to keep track of when to call or check in on their matches?
So this is Erin Wimmer. Carla and I were actually talking about this earlier today. I believe, according to best practice, we are supposed to be in touch with the mentor once a month. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
by the EEP standards, yes.
Right, exactly. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely have this question as well. Like, should I have a spreadsheet or should I have a paper in every single mentor's file? Like, how do you guys do it?
That's a very good question.
When I was at Teammates, I used just Excel to keep track, and it made sense to me. I don't know if it would have made sense to anybody else, but how about other programs on the call? What are you doing now? How do you track your contacts?
Yeah, Nicole, I think that was I can really relate to what you're saying, because I have a spreadsheet, but yet I don't type into it. I write into it because I find that I can write faster than I can type. And then I have that in front of me when I'm making notations, because I love making notes about what movies they've seen and what they're doing and what game they played and that kind of stuff. Because I found when I first started, if I had an individual sheet that I had to fill out for every mentor and every youth, I literally was brain dead at the end of all that. Or you'd say to yourself, okay, next week I'll catch up on this and I'll put everything where it's supposed to be. Well, you guys all know how that goes. You don't have the time to do it. So I find that spreadsheet with all the information, it has their phone numbers or their text or their phone numbers, sometimes email. I touch base with people that way. And then just take notes on what they say.
Great, thank you, Lynn.
I know that another method that some mentoring programs can utilize is to use mentoring software. So we actually do have someone on the call who utilizes innovative mentoring software, and I will not call them out. I won't throw them in the limelight, but if they want to perhaps suggest their experience with this software, because it does have the option of already having dates set up for you to check up on your mentors and mentees, and it's very comprehensive, very innovative. And so if you'd like to talk about this, I very much welcome it. Oh, okay.
So I know for me, this is Erin again. I have a sign-in sheet in each of the schools where the mentor comes in and signs in. Then they put the lanyard on, and then when they come back to the front office to sign out, there's a little area next to where they sign in and signed out that says, notes or comments. And I have specifically instructed them to write what they did for that week so that I'm just kind of aware of what's going on when I am not actually physically available to go say hi to them and talk to them. But I don't feel like this actually counts in terms, maybe match monitoring, but not match support. I also feel like in addition to that, I am emailing them once a month and saying, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? What do you need in terms of support? But would you consider that description of what they did during their, for that week when they were together, would you consider that one of those times of like reaching out to them or whatever, or is it different? Does my question make sense?
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. And if I follow you correctly, Erin, it's with the sign out sheet. I'm assuming they just come in, they write down when their sign in time, their name, who they were with, and then their sign out time and their activity that they did, correct?
That's correct.
Yes. So there's a mentoring program here in Des Moines that's very similar to that. It's called Monroe Bulldog Buddies. It's very new, and they do a similar system like that. And so they don't use it or consider it a check-in monitoring wise when it comes to the mentor-mentee. It's more so they view it as just a day-to-day log so they can see who's coming in, when they're coming in, and just to kind of make sure that people are seeing their mentees. So you could say perhaps it is a kind of check-in, but it's not very substantive. It's very surface level. So if you want to really get at the roots of how the relationship is going, I feel like that would perhaps require a more in-depth check-in with the mentor and the mentee.
I completely agree with you. I definitely like I said, that's what I do. I follow up with them and find out actually how they're doing and how things are feeling in regards to their match. So I guess I just wondered, like in terms of best practices, what is sort of expected?
I would think, ideally more of a contact, and kind of going back to this discussion that was just brought up prior to this one about knowing, when there are issues or things coming up that might need to be addressed. And then also when you have to have those harder, courageous conversations with someone, if you have that relationship and rapport and frequent conversation or communication with them, it's going to go much better. But then again, there's the reality of running programs day to day. So definitely having different strategies that you use and in place is great, so that when when you aren't able to reach them or they don't reply to your email, at least you do have that log. Yeah. Definitely. I know there's one program that uses sends out Survey Monkeys questionnaire after each mentoring visit to see, and it just has a standard couple of questions, and then to kind of use that as to look at who might need some more contact or support. So I think there's lots of different ways that you can go about that.
Certainly.
Yeah, and this is Chad here too. Just to add on, I think the best practice and standard is to do something every month, and by phone is probably best, or in person if you're able. But I think having a variety, but not doing the same, not maybe always doing email every time, because that, as we know, anyone can reply, but you don't really get the kind of the understanding of kind of either body language when it's in person or the tone of what they're saying. And you can, they might say, yeah, things are going okay, that's not confident. But in writing, I can type everything's going okay, and you can read it as like, okay, great, without knowing maybe what to follow up with. So I think, we know programs I've heard will allow email, but maybe not more than 3 contacts in a row, so that you at least every once in a while have a phone and have another opportunity to get a different kind of feedback from from the people involved in the match. And then I think too, another strategy I've heard programs use is not asking the same 5 questions every time. You might have a couple standard ones, but then every once in a while asking a few different types of questions that kind of add to the more diversity of responses you might get.
Right, and not just getting those automatic responses like, yep, everything's great. Next question.
Yes, because then it just turns into a formality.
Right, yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Chad. And also kind of goes along to say that there's not a one-size-fits-all model, so it's always nice to be a little flexible and adaptive and trying different things here and there. All right.
Let's see, were there any other questions in the chat box that we haven't addressed?
I think we might have gotten them all.
If you haven't entered a question, please go ahead and type one in the chat box, and we can have our awesome peers here share their wisdom.
In preparation for the peer share call, we did see that from some programs there was a common question that was thrown out, which was how to help find parents of the mentees find areas of services in the community that they needed. How do you help them find those things? Do you develop relationships with these services? And if so, how do you do that? So if anyone has had an experience with perhaps having to help a parent or guardian find additional services outside of the mentoring program, if you could just talk about that experience, maybe help enlighten the rest of us.
And this is Kathy, I'm not sure if this is what you mean, but sometimes I've had a mentor express a concern about something in particular, and then I go, oh, there are services that can help with that. And if that's what you mean, what I've done is I talk to the parent and just say, hey, you know, we found that some of our parents really use this particular resource. Here's the contact information. Here's how you get in touch with them. Maybe you should check that out sometime. And I try to make it generic from the sense that I don't want them to feel like, oh, the mentor told me X, Y, and Z, and therefore you have to do this. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure if that's exactly what you mean. The other thing is that when we do our intake for parents, we give all the parents a folder. We give the mentees a folder too when we do their home visit. And the parent folder has several resources and their contact information in their folder so that they do have phone numbers of places that they can call.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathy. And that was exactly what we were trying to get at. So you hit it right on the nose. Thank you very much. And Aaron just added another question to the chat box I think a lot of us have thought about, and that is, does anyone have a list of questions they ask in addition to the standard list of questions, like ideas of how to pull the mentor out of their shell a little when talking with them, things like that?
Yeah, just to kind of add on to my question, I've noticed with a lot of my mentors, like they're so kind and friendly and they're open when I ask them questions, but they are very rarely, you know, like willing to just like give me stuff. And so I feel like I'm kind of constantly trying to pull things out of them. If I want to chat about anything, maybe I need to step back and ask about the bigger picture. Like I go and I ask them how they're doing with their mentee. I ask them how the match feels, if they have any questions or problems or issues with their mentee. but how many of you, try to get to know, I'm assuming we're trying to get to know our mentors better, and trying to connect with them a little bit as well. So there's kind of a question there. Does anyone have an answer?
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying, and I think trying to get to know them just as a person and not just the mentoring role. I think that happened the best for me in our group events or group activities where there was, a more kind of social environment and lots of mentees and mentors around, that it was able to kind of build a relationship that way, not so zeroed in just on the, the specific match and how that relationship is going, but getting to know them better that way.
This is Val Maximovich, and one of the things that I'm doing and I've done for several years is our Mentor Mondays, which is once a month. And I think Kathy is doing Mentor Mingle, and it's in a social setting. So you may or may not have a speaker. You just all get together and visit. How's your mentor match going? We don't mention names. We just, we're generic, but at least you kind of get a feel of how they interact with their other adults and what they may or may not have done with their student. They get ideas from each other. I'm going to start something new in January. I'm going to ask mentors or a member of my advisory committee to go to lunch with me once a month, and we'll go to a different restaurant and set up a mentor, ask me about mentoring, like a little booth. And so hopefully, bring recruits with me. So I know you, I didn't know you mentored. So again, that's another social setting that you would have more one-on-one time with them. And you just have to carve out the time because we all know how short time is.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Val.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is Chad here again too, just kind of adding to that, Val, kind of just having your mentors engaged in volunteer opportunities with your organization. Obviously, by mentoring, that's volunteering, but there might be a special event or a committee that they can serve on. And again, this is not going to be for every mentor either, but for some of them it would work, and they want to be more engaged in your organization. And by that, through that work, you get to know your mentors more as well, because you see them more and you're engaging in them in a different light, but also using them, asking them to be, speaking for you at an event to talk about their experience and what their match is like. Again, you can kind of get a different angle of them, and also know too, there's going to be some that will they just want to come and mentor the kid and they'll answer your questions and that's it. So it's just kind of knowing that balance, I would say, is good.
So Carl just added another question into the chat box, saying, can we use this platform to invite mentors to chat with us and other mentors? If we can, how do we do that? Do you want to perhaps elaborate on that question a little bit for us, Carla?
Yes, the platform that we're on today, the training part where the people call in, sign up, call in, and talk. Can we as mentoring programs use this type of platform to engage our mentors to come in and talk to us about a topic or a concern that they're having?
Do you mean the peer share calls themselves or just the actual platform of go-to training?
Like go-to training that they could, just like we're doing today, come in and talk, sign up, talk, we can have a couple of questions and just give them the opportunity to collectively talk about things that are happening.
Yeah, I'd be curious if anybody's tried that, kind of the virtual, like you said, the mentoring, the coffees and that kind of thing. Has anyone tried that before?
I haven't, and I just wrote it down as a super great idea.
And you could even get a little bit of ongoing training in with that too. If you started the call with, a certain topic and gave some info first, and then.
Definitely.
And how do we learn how to use GoToTraining or whatever?
Yeah, so that's that's something you have to you'd have to subscribe to for your organization, but you should check what your organization has available for just conference calls. I know this has the chat feature, which you like too, but I would just check with the organization. YSS probably has something similar to that. We also use the Skype calls. Like I said, they don't all have the chat feature, but just so you could have the conference call feature.
And Skype has the chat feature.
Oh,
so yeah.
Yes, they do. I'm really not familiar with it.
Nice. Thank you.
And to kind of go into the next question, Kathy just put out an excellent one, which is what questions do you ask about child safety? And so what do our other programs ask, and how do you ask those child safety questions?
I know this is something everybody struggles with because it is so important to ask like those same questions and cover this every month, but then it gets to be it gets to be a challenge. Kathy, do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, it's just something that we've kind of started here, asking a dig deeper question every month. And it's been wonderful because like some of those mentors that all they did was say, yeah, everything's fine. Yeah, it's good. We're doing good. Yep, having fun. Great. Bye. When you ask those digging deeper questions, they go on and on. And so that's really good because it's helped. But we've been struggling with how do you ask about safety in general without being accusatory, because I don't want to say, are you wearing your seatbelts? Are you, the child's 8 years old, is he in the back seat? Because I want the questions to always be something that helps them share a little bit, knowing that there's not a right or wrong answer kind of thing, and that kind of thing. And it's hard. With safety, there is a wrong answer sometimes, or at least something that you need to say to folks, hey, listen here.
Anybody have comments on that? On the safety checks every month? I'm curious go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is Val in Independence. I think it's harder, it's difficult when you have community-based, but it's harder when you have school-based because they meet in the same place every time. They are always, I try to add questions like, have you went to the bathroom late when you're with your mentor? Do you waste time? Do you go to your classroom? You try to come up with unique situations for school-based, and that really gets hard also.
This is Chad here, and I think you can also, even though you might have rules against like not communicating via social media or some of those, you could always ask those, like, do you communicate via social media? And I think that can be related to a safety check-in question as well. Or, obviously, do you have any concerns in those types of ones too? But, kind of thinking, what are your rules that you outline at the beginning that you could just kind of reframe some of those into questions just to ensure they are following your guidelines. Do you see your mentor outside of school? And they could say yes, and they might just have run into them at the grocery store or the library, but they say yes. You say where? Oh, at their house. And you're like, oh, that's we don't allow that, or whatever the case may be. So those are other maybe thoughts around that.
I think it's also maybe you could frame this just like in a generic sense, kind of like you were talking about, Kathy, with an issue with a referral of a resource to a parent, and just say, oh, this has come up in matches recently, you know, that we've had issue with X, Y, or Z, and it's just kind of a way to remind folks of a particular rule, whether it's seatbelt or, you know, the safe meeting places or whatever it might be. I'm curious about your dig deep questions. I think that the questions, people always have questions. People have questions about their monthly questions on the calls.
Are you asking me that, Mary? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Kathy, do you have an example of like what your digging deeper questions about?
Yeah, one of the questions was, let me think about this, because it was one of the ones that was further away from today, was about, I can't remember the phrasing, but the phrasing was really important. Tell me more about how you feel your match is progressing. And I thought that was a great question, because one person said back to me, what do you mean by progressing? And I said, that's your call.
Yeah.
And it just kind of brought in that they stepped back from what they were doing, or saying, oh yeah, we went to the movies, we did this, you know, that kind of stuff, and went, oh, this is what I'm seeing. And so that was a good example. And I can't say that we made these questions up, because they came from some resource, and I don't even know where it came from. I think you must have given it to me, I'm sure. But that's just one example of a question.
I like the tell me more too, is even different than, you know, you're really asking them how are they, but tell me more about how they are. That, I think that just that phrasing, like you said, is really key.
And the other comment I'd like to make on that is a form that I've been using a lot this year. It's about the mentor-mentee relationship cycle and communication tips. And you can kind of look at where the match is, you know, if it's a new match, or they've been together for the second year, or they've been together more than 2 years. It kind of helps you walk through, you know, how's it going? Do you think your child's listening to you? You know, if it's the stage 1, you know, it's talking about different things that you can talk about. It's okay to break the silence. Anyway, have you all seen that sheet?
Is that something we could share with everyone, Val, if you sent it our way?
Yeah, it was in an effective communication handbook in the mentor-mentee relationship cycle. So I could scan that and send it to you, Mary.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are a lot of resources out there about questioning too. So if anyone has other, you know, has any resources like that they're willing to share, no sense everybody out there searching for things if we have.
That resource.
You have something tried and true. Yeah, you have something tried and true.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of resources, if we can just circle back really quick, if y'all haven't seen in the chat box, Chad has been kind enough to offer up 2 resources, which go back to Carla's question about utilizing platforms like GoToTraining or similar to GoToTraining to perhaps facilitate peer share calls with mentor to mentor. So he offered www.freeconferencecall.com, which is a completely free resource. So you guys can always check out the website for more information on their options. And he also did mention that you can also use Google Hangouts as another platform to kind of gather people for a group call. So there are options to you and your program staff to facilitate these kind of electronic gatherings, if you may, so you can kind of have these sharing of resources.
Will Chad send those out with the information from this webinar as well?
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Great, thank you.
All right. Do we have like any more questions? Anything lingering and that you just really kind of want to ask?
I just have one more. How do you deal with the closure matches when one child, like the child doesn't want to participate or the mentor doesn't want to?
That's a good one. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments on that one?
What
If
I've done is
the
I've tried. Go ahead. This is Angie Woodford. And I guess what I've done is I try to find like a reason that's maybe not the obvious direct reason, like schedule conflicts, or that other person is just gotten too busy and it seems to go really smoothly.
And I think one thing to look at the school is, like you brought up the schedule, sometimes it really is that a kiddo just is missing out on something during the school day, that the schedule, there's something that they really care about that they're missing. So trying to kind of explore what is the root cause behind that resistance, to see if possibly just rescheduling could be an option.
This is Kathy, and one thing, I guess I just lay it out there. I just talk about how, friendships change. And we all know that there have been friendships that they just stop and you don't know why and that kind of thing. But we want to be sure that we're ending this in a good way, and just say that, maybe the youth is no longer interested in mentoring. That's no reflection on how well the mentor did or anything. It's just, that's what it is. We're human. That's how it is. The same thing too with adults. Sometimes things change and that kind of thing. And that's usually how I explain it to the kids, is something's happening different in the mentors in their world right now, and something's changed and they're not able to do this anymore. And just kind of say it that way, because you can't tell everything, but to kind of just, like you said, Angie, smooth it over a little bit, but to just kind of bring it back to, this is a friendship and not all friendships last forever and ever.
All right, well, excellent. Well, I'd definitely say that we had a fantastic discussion today with these burning questions. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. But right before you guys all depart from us, we wouldn't be the IMP if we didn't constantly remind you that next month is National Mentoring Month. So try to keep these dates up on your calendars, keep them back of your heads, because they'll be upon us very quickly. So January 4th is going to be I'm a Mentor Day. January 17th, two things are important. One is going to be International Mentoring Day, and then that's when we are going to be wanting the Excellence in Mentoring nominations due. So if you need the link to that, it should be within our December newsletter. It'll be in our January newsletter, and it's also on our website. January 21st, will be Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day of Service. I'm very excited for that personally. And then, of course, the 31st, it will be Thank Your Mentor Day. The only thing we forgot to add on this list of calendar dates is going to be the Mentoring Summit, which will be happening a few days before Thank Your Mentor Day. But we will definitely also make sure that everybody is well aware of that. So just keep these dates on your calendar and don't forget about them. But with that, we just want to say thank you for everybody who was on the call today. It was a fantastic discussion.
Put the next call up.
Oh, yes. We forgot to mention that the next call will be on January 10th. It's going to be a mental health talk, both for program staff and also for child mental health. So it's going to be all inclusive. So if you have any questions or if you're curious about mental health, be sure to join us on for that peer share call. And without further ado, I mean, just that's it, everybody. Thank you guys for joining in on us.